News Channel 5.
This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rattle reporting. Good evening. President Bush emphasized today that he will veto a measure allowing some federal help for some abortions for poor women, those in cases of rape and incest. This put Mr. Bush back on the firing line over abortion policy. A veto fight not only with Congress, but a national battle of law and emotion, and increasingly, a political campaign issue nationwide. Chief White House correspondent Leslie Stahl has the latest on the president's veto and the new abortion policy battles of 1989. Leslie?
Dan, the White House has just released a letter explaining why the president is going to veto that bill, and I'm going to read you just a little bit from it. The president says that the difficult issue of abortion is made even more difficult when the underlying issue is whether the government and ultimately the taxpayer is asked to pay for abortions and under what circumstances. The veto threat brought chills to pro-choice Republicans and party operatives who fear that Mr. Bush's high-profile position will give the party an anti-choice label and hurt all Republicans.
If what we're going to try to cling to in the Republican Party is the right to life base, then we're going to lose the race in Virginia for governor, and we're going to lose the race in New Jersey for governor if that's what we try to cling to, because that base is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking.
National GOP leaders say Republican governors are frantic, worried about losing support from yuppies and women, two giant blocks of voters. Democrats agree.
A member from the other party said over the weekend that if George Bush vetoes this bill, it will become his Willie Horton. I agree. I think it will haunt him for the rest of his political career.
What we are talking about here is protecting unborn life.
Abortion is fast becoming every politician's nightmare. Every day, it seems, there's another vote on the issue somewhere. Today, it was Illinois, where a House committee voted down any further action to restrict abortions, and Michigan, where a Senate committee voted to send a parental consent bill to the legislature for a vote next week, but the pro-choice governor has already said he'll veto it. While the pro-choice side is confident that President Bush is leading his party over a cliff, Mr. Bush is hearing from his own political operatives that it's not so bad.
The president's position and the position of the Republican Party is a very rational and reasonable position.
The president has been under intense pressure from conservatives to hang firm on his anti-abortion stand. Nevertheless, Mr. Bush did work hard to try and find a compromise on this before issuing his veto promise. His chief of staff even worked with congressmen, and they typed up a page with new proposed language for the bill, but a spokesman said that in the end they couldn't find enough flexibility. Dan?
Leslie, White House Chief of Staff John Sununu is behind the stand. What about the rest of the staff?
Well, it's interesting, Dan. The president's personal physician, Burton Lee, said today that he is pro-choice, and he thinks that disqualifies him from becoming Surgeon General. Other White House officials here say there is no litmus test on abortion for positions in the government, but they also say that the Surgeon General would have to support the president's anti-abortion position, which sounds a lot like a litmus test.
Leslie Stahl, thanks. Another wild day during the day for the jittery stock market. It was hit hard in the morning when the government announced the broadest widening of the year for this nation's trade deficit. Trade deficit figures were surprisingly high. And although the stock market cut its losses during the day, analysts were concerned that the day's economic figures may add up to bad news for the American worker. And as CBS News business correspondent Ray Brady explains, that's because of what's happening to the American dollar.
Okay, Donna, what do you got? You want to sell $7
Today, the worry and the fear shifted to another market, the currency market. After picking up in value over the past few weeks, the American dollar dropped today.
Everyone's a little worried. It's a skittish market in general.
Worried by more bad economic news. The U.S. trade deficit rose in August to $10.75 billion, up a surprising 31%. The biggest gap this year, as Americans kept buying more from abroad, primarily foreign cars and machinery, and selling less to other nations. That means more orders for foreign factories, fewer orders for U.S. factories.
Well, the American worker is going to be the loser because they're going to outright lose jobs.
Early today, the figures sent stock prices down sharply, off more than 60 points, though the Dow Jones Industrial Average came back later in the day, ending it off by just over 18 points. The administration tried to put a bright face on the trade figures.
Well, it's just a one-month figure, so I don't worry about it a great deal.
Private economists had a different view.
First, it's going to hurt the economy. Second, it could hurt the dollar. And as the dollar falls, we could end up with more inflation.
So, back in the money pits, there was worry about the trade deficit and the stock market.
I would phrase the action of the dollar as nervous dealings. People are unwilling to take large positions with the stock market being as volatile as it is.
If that dollar keeps dropping, it will help the trade figures, but it will hit Americans in the pocketbook, pushing up the price of what we buy from abroad. And these days, that's everything from cars to clothing and from tea to telephones. Dan?
Thank you, Ray. New questions raised today about the storage of some of this nation's dangerous nuclear waste from defense plants. Questions of safety raised in an old report long kept secret from the public. Our chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer reports now on what the government now says it knew about the Hanford Reservation back then, but didn't tell.
Below these fields in Washington state are underground tanks where the government has stored radioactive nuclear waste for more than 40 years. It was not known until today, but a government study concluded 5 years ago that there was a possibility the tanks might explode, not only spreading radioactivity over the area, but creating a blast with a force of 36 tons of TNT. Why, Ohio Senator John Glenn asked today, was the public never informed?
But the point is, nothing has been resolved surrounding a potentially dangerous situation in the years and years that have gone by since the first report came out.
The problem, cyanide deposits at the bottom of 15 of the underground tanks used to store the radioactive waste. The Energy Department says that subsequent investigations found the risk of explosion was not as great as the first report indicated, since it is unlikely that the waste would ever reach the high temperatures required to create combustion.
The potential danger, it's a very low probability of anything happening.
Questioned in Washington while testing an experimental solar-powered car, Energy Secretary James Watkins said he too was satisfied the danger could be managed.
We can keep it under management control. I don't see this a threat at this point in time.
Even so, all sides agree the possibility of an explosion cannot be dismissed totally. And Senator Glenn says the fact that details are only now beginning to leak out illustrates a more serious problem, that government must keep a closer watch on nuclear safety procedures. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Still to come on the CBS Evening News, Jerry Bowen on a national disgrace, child abuse, a fact of the present. And Bob McNamara on an old disgrace, segregation, a relic of the past.
There's no reason in the world why we shouldn't continue to do the things that we enjoy doing in life. Granted, we have the odd aches and pains. Well, my goodness, I mean, what can we expect at our age? But I find that if I have Bufferin, a cup of tea and a couple of Bufferin, and I can continue. And Bufferin, my brand of aspirin, allows me to do the things that I want to do. I really wouldn't be without it for that reason.
Bufferin, so you can do the things you want to do.
The low-priced Subaru Justy with four-wheel drive. Think of it as a Range Rover that's more in your range.
Crosswords and croissants mean Sunday breakfast at our house, complemented by the rich, fresh flavor of Sunsweet pitted prunes.
Sunsweet, an 8-letter word that means delicious.
Only one prune tastes unsweet.
Now that I'm out of the house, I spend a lot of time on the road. Quality, comfort, Clarion, and Sleep hotels. You can get a comfortable room at a great price anywhere you go. They even give me a 30% senior discount. Now, who says a politician can't control spending?
Seniors save 30% by calling 800-221-2222.
Another Colombian federal court judge was assassinated today, apparently by drug thugs. This murder took place in Medellin, home base for one of the world's biggest drug and violence outfits. CBS News correspondent Richard Schlesinger is in Colombia, where the judges are asking for justice and protection.
Judge Hector Jimenez Rodriguez was killed outside his house as he waited for a ride to work early this morning. Jimenez was the first judge killed since Colombia declared war on drug traffickers. Shortly after Jimenez died at a local hospital, a group claiming to represent the drug dealers took responsibility for the murder and said it was in retaliation for continuing extradition of drug suspects to the U.S. In Bogota this afternoon, the Judges Association called a 3-day nationwide strike to protest the killing.
The national government, although it promised us protection, hasn't done anything yet. And we keep going with no protection. We don't want to be cannon fodder.
The Judges Association will talk to the government about increased protection and says it may strike for more than 3 days if they don't get it. Estimates are that effective security for the judges may cost between $10 and $20 million, money this country does not have. The U.S. has pledged $5 million for protection of Colombian judges, but the first shipment of security equipment didn't go to the judges. It went to U.S. Embassy personnel. Using Colombian Justice Ministry figures, Judge Jimenez is the 51st judge to be killed since 1982. Richard Schlesinger, CBS News, Bogota.
A spokesman for President Bush said today the administration is trying to work out an understanding with Congress that could make it easier to support a future coup or even murder attempt against Panama's Manuel Noriega. Under a 13-year-old executive order, the United States may not become involved in assassination plots. But CIA Director Webster says that order has been interpreted to bar U.S. aid to any plot that might lead to the death of a foreign leader. And he says that may be too strict. Asked if a looser rule would have made a difference in Panama, Webster said he didn't know, but he said it might make a difference the next time if some plotter decides he has to, quote, take Noriega out. In Florida, no shuttle launched today, this time bad weather. It was the latest frustrating delay in liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis and deployment of its main payload, the plutonium-powered little spacecraft Galileo, still waiting to go explore Jupiter. They'll try again tomorrow. Weather prospects uncertain.
Attention shredded wheat eaters, you've been missing something. Taste, but no more. Kellogg's Squares brings you that superlative shredded wheat nutrition with no salt, no fat, no cholesterol. But wait, Kellogg's Squares gives you free in every bite taste. Sweet, delectable fruit in the middle. You might never eat plain old shredded wheat again. Kellogg's Squares, shredded wheat with taste, free in every bite. And speaking of taste, now Squares have 35% more raisin. Great taste, free.
This is new Hellman's cholesterol free.
Will I like it?
It has 0% cholesterol.
Will I like it?
It tastes 100% Hellman's.
I like it.
I knew you'd like it.
I knew I'd like it.
New Hellman's cholesterol free with half the fat. Bring out the best.
If you thought you had to give up comfort to get a close shave, Norelco says, think again. Their revolutionary shaving system shaves skin close in a way that's incredibly comfortable. As the hair enters the chamber, the patented lift and cut system lifts each hair and holds it a split second before a blade cuts it, so it's possible to shave skin close without the blades even touching the skin. The lift and cut shaving system from Norelco. We made close comfortable.
Uncle Charlie hasn't thought about his dentures all day, because he thought about Orifix this morning.
Orifix 'em. That'll fix 'em.
Orifix has extra hold to hold dentures tight day and night. Orifix 'em. That'll fix 'em.
In Los Angeles today, defense attorneys began their closing arguments in a child molestation case that's attracted national attention during a sordid marathon trial. Charges against 5 co-defendants have been dropped because of insufficient evidence, leaving a mother and her son, both former preschool teachers, as defendants. But whatever the verdict, authorities see the case as a symbol of an increasing national tragedy that's become a national scandal. Jerry Bowen reports.
California's McMartin preschool scandal. It began as the most notorious child abuse case in American history, with charges that hundreds of youngsters had been sexually molested at the now-defunct nursery.
Please raise your right hand.
31 months and 13 million taxpayer dollars later, it's become the nation's longest, most expensive criminal trial ever, and fair or not, a symbol of every parent's worst fear.
It had an enormous impact initially, a recognition that
The problem of out-of-home sexual abuse was a real one.
In response to McMartin and similar cases, scores of states and cities enacted tough screening requirements for preschool workers. 25 states expanded parents' rights, making unannounced visits to preschools a legal right. But in the 5 years since McMartin hit the headlines, surveys show the problem of child abuse has continued to worsen, and that the nightmare of physical, sexual, or emotional abuse is still far more likely to occur in a child's home than anywhere else.
Child Protective Services.
Okay, uses drugs and alcohol.
Okay, what, undressed? Both of them being undressed?
Last year, there were 2,300,000 reports of child abuse nationwide, up 3% from the year before, and half of all the reports were substantiated.
He eventually ended up saying, I'm going to drop the kids off at the mall like you drop kitties and doggies off. Experts
suspect much more is occurring than is reported, but what's known is grim enough. Just over half the cases involve neglect, abandonment. 1/4 involve physical abuse, with the growth category being fatalities, up nearly 40% since 1985. That's 3 children dying each day in this country from maltreatment, a level of violence which social workers link directly to parents using crack and cocaine.
Kinds of abuse that we thought we really had a handle on 5 years ago, and we find out today that we don't have a handle on it, and in fact the problem is worse.
The problem is so bad that in 43 states it's becoming routine to review child death cases to absolutely rule out foul play.
The good news is we're doing more. The bad news is the better we open our eyes, the more clearly we see, the more garbage we're finding.
Give the child.
The problem is so pervasive that court-ordered parenting classes have become a standard tool in the effort to prevent abuse.
I don't see whether changes have made any effect.
But the nightmare continues, and Mary Creekmore relives it every day. A battered wife, she was a reluctant accomplice in the 1986 death of her son Eli. Her ex-husband was imprisoned for life for the murder, which followed months of abuse. And Washington State, where the crime occurred, adopted a more aggressive child protection program, which is now a model for the nation. But even the experts agree there's no guarantee it would have saved little Eli.
One woman said that someday you're going to die and you're going to go up to heaven and you're going to see your little boy and he's going to ask you, why, Mommy, why didn't you do anything? And then I was going to go to hell.
For hundreds of thousands of children, a very real hell still waits every day, just behind the front door at home. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
A Chicago judge today barred the National Transportation Safety Board from further testing of the engine of that United Airlines DC-10 that crash-landed last July in Sioux City, Iowa. The accident claimed the lives of 112 of the 296 people aboard. The judge, acting on a lawyer's complaint, agreed that the safety board testing should be stopped because General Electric, which made the engine, was involved in the test process. He said an independent tester should check the engine. The safety board plans to appeal today's ruling.
Nearly 1/3 of the smoke detectors in American homes are not working because of dead or missing batteries. In a fire, they'd be worthless. That's why First Alert created the new light test smoke detector. No smoke detector you can buy is easier to test. You don't even have to stand up. Just wave a flashlight at the gold button, and you know it's working. The new light test smoke detector. Only First Alert gives you this extra protection.
Let's go with this fabric. To my customers, every little detail means a lot, so I can't stop when my minor arthritis pain acts up. So instead of aspirin, I take Advil. My doctor told me to try Advil when my hands feel stiff from the pain. You know, 1 Advil is as effective as 2 regular aspirin. And that's the kind of strength I like. Yet Advil's gentler to my stomach than aspirin. For hours of relief, Advil is just my style. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
To the average car, this could be a dangerous body of water, even though it's only an inch deep. That's why you should drive the new 4-wheel drive Subaru Legacy, the latest in foul weather gear.
Good
morning.
Good news. Medical experts agree today's X-Lax helps restore natural fluid balance to get you back to natural regularity. And that's a good morning for you. Today's X-Lax, the sure way back to natural regularity.
The flight of East Germans to the West picked up again today as 125 refugees flew from Poland to West Germany. They were among nearly 2,000 East Germans who had taken refuge at the West German Embassy in Warsaw, Poland. The rest are expected to follow over the next few weeks. A steady stream of refugees also continues to leave via Hungary. More than 1,400 in the last 24 hours. About 40,000 East Germans have taken that route in the last 5 months since Hungary cut away the barbed wire on its border with Austria. Anthony Mason has been covering the changing face of communism all through these months. And he followed up by following some of the first refugees across the border, and tonight he reports on what they found in the West.
Watch 25-year-old Ines Hartmann walk through the streets of West Germany, wide-eyed and smiling. It's difficult to remember the fearful face that 2 months ago hid in a field near the Hungarian border. That day in August, Ines Hartmann ran for her life. Through the gap between the border guards, she slipped into the West. East German friends told her she was foolish to go, that she'd never find work, that she'd sleep in the streets. They were wrong. She'd never met her Western cousins until she showed up on their doorstep in Middle Grundau, but they have taken her in. The local water board has offered her a job drawing structural plans. And instead of culture shock, Ines has experienced a kind of cultural exhilaration. At first, she says, I would speak softly or whisper behind my hands. My uncle said, speak freely, you're not in East Germany anymore. It took me a while to understand that. When Hungary finally threw open its borders for East Germans at midnight on September 11th, Oliver Wolf and his girlfriend Juliana were among the first to officially cross. We knew we had each other, he says, but not much else. You'll find Oliver now on the production line of the Opel automobile factory near Frankfurt. His skills as a mechanic got him a job as a welder. Juliana's working too at a fashion boutique. The West German government loaned the couple money to buy furniture, and they've set themselves up in a one-bedroom apartment.
We have a little room now, yes, but we have work, and we are happy as it's okay.
The hundreds of East Germans still arriving every day in the refugee camps are met by job offers tacked to every available surface. For most, the worry is not so much what they'll find in the West, but what they've left in the East. For Ines Hartmann, it's her Dresden childhood, her brother now in the East German army, and her mother. The one who worries, she says, is my mother, because mothers always worry. After Juliana left, her father was visited by the East German police and told not to contact her. Juliana says she's homesick for her family, but not for her homeland.
We are happy that we are here, and we never go back, never.
Letters are the refugees' last links with home, and Ines still writes her friends every day. I tell them, she says, that I'm well, that I'm sorry they're not here, and that it's good to be free. Anthony Mason, CBS News, Frankfurt.
A1, it's how steak is done.
Doctors measure back pain by how far you can bend. Extra Strength Dones is made for back pain relief with an ingredient these pain relievers don't have. Dones makes back pain go away. Extra Strength Dones, made for back pain relief.
This plum is one of the very best sources of fiber. Once it turns into a prune, prunes, the high-fiber fruit.
Hot tea all day doesn't stop this dentuera from hitting high C.
Hot tea? Fix-it and forget it.
Give up hot chocolate just because I started wearing dentures? Scamp!
Hot chocolate? Fix-It-Dent and forget it. Heat-resistant Fix-It-Dent spreads evenly to keep on fixing loose spots, no matter how often it gets hot.
I can drink hot coffee all day and still help a lady.
Heat-resistant. One more reason to use Fix-It-Dent and forget it.
Changing times for a top opinion maker. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall says he has decided to start using the term Afro-American in his written opinions. Justice Marshall told the Baltimore Sun, and I quote, "I spent most of my life trying to get Negro spelled with a capital N. By the time I got that done, everyone was using black with a small b." End of quotation. Another case in point tonight about trying to change stereotypes and attitudes. Correspondent Bob McNamara has found a story on a Mississippi water fountain and the flow of history.
Deep in Dixie, one of segregation's last relics still stands, a water fountain. The word colored still visible through the plaster that hasn't covered the past.
That's sad because they're trying to preserve something that is over and done with.
Though the signs of segregation were outlawed 25 years ago by the Civil Rights Act, Ellisville, Mississippi's colored courthouse fountain and a vandalized twin for whites have lingered, gathering leaves unused for years. Mississippi's NAACP wants them removed.
We're going to continue with this until these fountains are removed, ever how long it takes.
The issue has boiled old fears and anger.
Y'all down here to start trouble, and if that's what you're looking for, you can damn quick get it. Every time this nigger business slacks up a little bit, here y'all come with these things stirred up again.
Mississippi State Historical Museum has wanted the fountains for a civil rights exhibit for years, but county officials say no.
Well, it seems like in Jones County that the colored folks are the ones that are inclined to be insulted, if you will, because I haven't had any white people to say they were agitated by a white being on the fountain.
With a 20% black population that's mostly poor, Jones County, Mississippi is drowsy Dixie. And in the big piney timber country, with more signs of an old South than a new one, old times here really aren't forgotten.
We don't destroy the history books just because it has negative things that we wouldn't do today. That's part of our heritage that we learn from. Just like the Confederate soldier monument there. We need things like that to remind us that we're better today than we were then.
If you want to show some progress, get rid of the mess and put one fountain out there that says all men are created equal, and that would be good enough for the progress.
For Ellisville, the fountain issue is becoming dividing and tiring.
You can take them and put them to CBS headquarters if you want to, one on each side of the door. All I want you to do is go away and leave us alone, let us work it out.
They are museum pieces mostly now, the visible barriers between blacks and whites. They are from a sad chapter of American history, an era that for yet another generation here has not closed. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Ellisville, Mississippi.
And that's part of our world tonight. Dan Rather for the CBS Evening News. See you tomorrow. Good night.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow, the Reverend Ralph Abernathy and his controversial book about Martin Luther King Jr.
Also, Martin Landau on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS. Coming up on News Channel 5, the Metro Council prepares for